Welcome to Empath Unplugged, a frequent release podcast of raw and philosophical reflections on well-being, love, and the meaning of life. Brought to you by your host, Esther Bertram, founder of The Insel, a rejuvenation island and community for empaths. Expect topics such as philosophy, psychology, art, culture, spirit, science, holistic health, and the occasional beach fire song to be part of your wonder ride to your oceanside escape. It's time to breathe in the salty air and bask in the soothing warm sun to relax, reflect, and vibe along with a fellow empath to rejuvenate. Hello listeners, welcome to podcast number 6. Today's topic is how to use creative expression to unload emotions. Now, I'm broadcasting today from the Insel where the sun is shining, the birds are singing, the ocean over there is glistening, and it's a perfect day to get in our creative spaces. And I feel like this is a topic I'm quite uniquely placed to talk about, as I've been an empath all my life and a creative expressioner, if that's a word, expressing my emotions creatively all my life as well. I studied music from a very young age, from actually kindergarten. We were taken out of class for an hour each day, a small group of us, in an experimental project, and that ended up leading me to becoming a songwriter when I was 13 and studying composition at university for 4 years, and then traveling from Australia to Europe for over a decade as a professional singer-songwriter. And it was literally the perfect outlet I could ever have had for the amazing amount of emotions I have felt since I was a young child. So I've always felt things very deeply and strongly, and music has been a lifesaver. And through all the turbulence that I've seen in various times of my life from various factors, externally and internally, music has been a thread that has not only nurtured my soul, it's given me a safe outlet for excess positive and negative emotions, because both of them can lead you to be a bit wobbly. And when you express them, they no longer reside as strongly in your body, so you're more balanced again. So I'm excited to do this topic, and I'm on a mission to help as many empaths as I can to become what I call 1-2-3s, which is down to the theory that I made called the 1-2-3 theory. If you want to learn more, go to the123theory.com, and it's about prioritizing your own well-being as number one. Number 1 is yourself, 2 is your loved ones, 3 is the rest of the world. And when you keep it in that order, you thrive and you can become a super empath. And I think most empaths would like to feel lighter and be able to dance through life without carrying the extra heavy baggage that we seem to do. And I've been through that period of my life where I was a 2-1-3, where others people's needs were more important than my own, and it feels really like you're just carrying all these baggages that don't even have wheels, and they're not trolley baggage, they're just heavy and they make your shoulders hurt, and you just it's like carrying the world on your shoulders, and it's not very nice. And I think empaths, we want to clear ourselves from other people's emotions. We still want to be able to feel into them. It's a beautiful skill to have a deep empathy and be able to cross that bridge of empathy into other people's realities. And it can really help make the world a better place when we're able to do that. But there's a difference between crossing that bridge and experiencing someone's reality, or then gathering all their baggage and having to cross the bridge back to our own island, carrying all their shit with us. That's not ideal because it's not very productive, or we can't be optimized because our hands are full literally with other people's stuff. So when we can creatively express we can become, especially in the soul department. If you listen to the podcast number 5, the one before this is where I got the idea to do today's podcast. I talk about the 5-finger theory, which is the theory that I made up that connects with the 1, 2, 3 theory about holistic well-being. And it covers the departments I feel is, for me, I needed to focus on to get my holistic well-being thriving on all 5 cylinders. And that's mind, heart, body, soul, and purpose. And in the soul department, being creative or even consuming other people's creativity really, for me, helps amplify that connection with the universe, because creativity to me is a very deep reflection of all that is, and through the perspective of somebody that then expresses it outwardly. And it has the ability to transcend a lot of our logic and reasoning and go truly just into a very deep expression of what it is to be human in an existence that we live in. And when we see perspectives from others that make us think or feel in any way, like sometimes we resonate with it and we go, oh my God, I felt exactly that. We might hear a love song and we're feeling in love, so therefore we connect on that level. But also we might see a piece of art that makes us feel something really negative, and because it's jarring to our whole being. And that also gives us a new perspective of life, because it's again traveling that empathy bridge into someone else's perspective and seeing life through their lens and how they creatively expressed. And that's also a wonderful thing to be able to do, because every reference point we have gives us more knowledge of the thing we're referencing against, because you can't know something without a reference point. If you put something in space without anything else around, we could argue, does it even exist? Because there is nothing else but it. And it's only when you put objects in perspective and reference to each other that they almost come into existence, although that could be a rabbit hole we might not want to go down. Anyway, the reason I've made today's podcast is purely for 2 things. One is boosting the soul part of our experience, getting in touch with our creative inner child that is able to creatively reflect and express so we can unload emotions. But also in doing that, we are strengthening our 1, so we're becoming a better 1, 2, 3 rather than a 2, 1, 3. And the whole purpose of everything I'm doing at the moment is to help empaths become shining 1, 2, 3, so they can go forth and conquer in the world with their diamond heart, bright lights, and help make the world a better place. So the reason I feel using creativity is so important is because often we are, as empaths, the demands externally are so weighted on us, and we need to become a spring of energy and not just giving from a place of struggling for our own energy source. And when you're creatively expressing, not only are you ridding yourself of excess emotions that can topple you over, but you're also filling your own cup, and it's part of that wellspring source that you can then give to other people. Because when we're not doing that, we can often feel very depleted or overwhelmed, and we're often serving other people's agendas rather than our own. And I've seen more often than not empaths becoming almost like emotional doormats, and it's not sustainable to carry that much shit of other people's, and we need to get it out of our bodies. Number 1, we just got to rid ourselves of that, because then we can have a much better boundary as well, so we can choose when and if we cross that bridge of empathy for having a better outcome for all of the participants involved, rather than just become a luggage carrier. So the reason I feel like I'm well placed for this particular podcast topic is because, the two things. One, I've been an empath since I was a very young child. I've always felt subtle energies and things very acutely with what's going on and needing to be on alert to tune into my environment. And I noticed it especially even in primary school. I got very affected when people were bullied, and I used to stand up for them. I hung out with the boys actually more than the girls because they played soccer and I love soccer, and they'd let me play. I was the only girl they'd let play because I was able to, be a bit rough as well. I was boyish enough for them, and I played with them every day. But I had my girlfriends as well. But that actually placed me well to be a good advocate for bullying. So if I ever noticed any of the boys picking on a weaker character or person or new person, I used to get very defensive and stand up for them because I could feel into the reality of the one they were getting picked on, and I just hated that injustice. And I became aware then that I was very, I was feeling a lot of other people's stuff. And when I was 10, from one minute to another, I became a vegetarian because I think I'm, definitely an animal empath, because that was like a switch that just flicked because Mum brought me my dinner of chicken, and I remember seeing it running around the room in my mind, and I saw it as my friend, and it was a horrific thought to consume my friend, and I was just disgusted, and I was not a chance in the universe I will ever eat one of my friends ever again. And it was like from one to another, flick, that switch went, and it's been like that ever since. And I became vegan 23 years ago as well. And at that time, and I thank my mother for supporting that decision because it's quite a change. She comes from Finland, and there was quite a bit of meat in the, not heaps of it, but it's meat and potatoes was quite a feature. So she did so well to accept my change at such a young age, and I thank her for that. But I remember already then the emotions were really strong in me for other people and other energy and animal plights, like what the innocence. I never liked injustice of how animals were treated, how people were picked on. I was in the 80s when I was 10, and also we became more aware of the state of the world. I remember in Australia there was all these ads about people in Ethiopia starving, and actually I was probably younger than 10 then. Mum told me a story that I took the rest of my dinner and put it in an envelope to send it to Ethiopia. I mean, it's ridiculous. But just hearing stories like that, I remember already feeling then that I was thinking a lot of other people's reality and wanting to play my part to help, and feeling a bit helpless. So music, I was doing music every day, getting taken out of my class for an hour every single day for all of my primary school life, thanks to the Canberra School of Music and these Hungarian teachers that started this program when I happened to be in kindergarten. They started it that year, so I was in the first group. And honestly, I'm so grateful to them, although it was pretty hardcore. Like, we were studying Holst the planets in year 3, I remember, and like it's pretty out there. But that outlet and that connection with sound and music, it was just like a remedy to everything I was feeling, because I often felt like I'm a cup that's just overflowing with feeling too much. I was feeling too much of everybody and everything. And it's kind of, plus, not to mention home things going on with my father and mother split when I was 2, because they were very young when they had me. I was 18, 19 and 20, so they're young hippies back then, and I was going between the two like families, with mum and then with my father in the bush, which was also a little bit like a seesaw. And when I became a songwriter and I picked up the guitar, and my friend Nerida taught me some chords and Mum showed me some things because she used to play a bit here and there. I remember writing my first songs. I was around 13 and I was so happy that it was almost like just this little present package. I could download all of the things that I felt and just put them in a safe little place rather than acting out and, I don't know, becoming just overwhelmed with the emotions and sprouting it out and causing drama in life. I channeled the feelings that I was feeling, and sometimes there were positive feelings of feeling too excited or too happy or too in love or too something. Anything that was too anything, the one that was screaming at me the loudest inside myself, I would channel that into a song and put it in there in a nice little package, and it was getting out of my body. And that became almost just like food for me. I needed to do it as a part of, emotional and mental hygiene. So I became a songwriter from then and studied it. I remember in year 12, there was my father and stepmother were going through a 10-year tumultuous breakup, and I was putting all of that into song, and my year 12 piece was an original, really intense song, which was a download of my experience of that. And anyway, that led me to go off to university and study composition for 4 years before then leaving Australia and becoming a professional singer-songwriter in Europe, which was wonderful because I was able to play my original songs in all over Europe as I had to do it anyway for my emotional outlet, but I was fortunate enough to then get paid to do that. So it was a wonderful decade, and I learned so much about the power of music and how it transcends all language. And I remember playing in Spain once, and for some reason the Spanish people got my dark songs better than other countries, and I thought they were all a happy culture and outward and party, and they were always wild audiences. But when I played my heavier, deeper, darker songs, they just loved it. And I talked to somebody about it once, and they couldn't even understand the words, but the vibe of it. And somebody told me about, like in the flamenco tradition, about this angst and depth, and how there's these correlations between these deep places of human experience you can go to and bring it into sound. And I think that was one of the things that they resonated with. Anyway, in my 20s, I started having my first more serious relationships, and it became a very prolific time for my songs because I just had so much material, because I was having highs and lows and tangulations and so much reflection that needed to be expressed. And I'm going to actually, in song time at the end of this podcast, I'm going to play actually one of my electronic songs today. It's called In Love. And that song, for example, it was almost like a protection for me not to fall in love. Well, not end up in another tangulation, because I wrote it just when I got free from a very narcissistic relationship where he was a double 1 2 3 and I was a 2 1 3, and we were like a jigsaw. My energy just fed into his double 1, and I finally got free, and that's when I made up my theories. And there was this dalliance of a very intense vibe going on with somebody, but it was so soon after I just got free, and I didn't want to end up in another tangulation, and I'd made a agreement to myself to become a strong one before I enter into another relationship. And by writing that song about falling in love, it was almost like it was an avatar. I could experience it in song form and express what I was feeling, so I didn't have to go through it as well. And it wasn't the right time for us anyway. And that's a whole interesting story on its own. But the function of the song was really perfect because I was able to get it out of myself. Anyway, I'll play that at the end of the podcast as in song time. And one thing, I listened to this talk this week from a psychologist, and it was interesting. I also already work with children under 5 as a chief marketing officer for a music company, and I'm very aware of that. Under 5 is when we have our most amount of neural activity ever, like our synapses, all the pathways are firing like crazy. And then I listened to this talk this week from a psychologist, which was really interesting. And she said that how the brain works is when it's having that really active period when we're really young. That's why it's really important to have children involved in all kind of creativity things and music, especially because it lights up all areas of the brain at once. If you don't use certain neural pathways in those years growing into a child, she said it's like if you don't use it, lose it. And what ends up happening is your brain decides what are the pathways that it's going to need to survive and keep going and which ones are not used enough, and they get, deactivated until you later on in life decide to reactivate them. And I found it quite interesting because I think I just took it for granted that I got to do music so young, and my mum and my father both listened to so much music, and I was around it from a young age. And then I entered this program in kindergarten, and it was nurtured, and I'm so grateful for that because as an empath, it's actually saved my life. And I think it's so important that if you've got young children, please get them involved in music. Just even if they're not an empath, it's just so good for the brain and development. But if you're listening to this and you're one of these people that all children are creative, they're painting pictures and they're doing music, and when you're young, you're just firing completely and trying all different things. But if you were in a situation where that wasn't nurtured and supported, you might be in the category where you didn't use it, so you lost it. And you might now possibly wrongly say, oh, I'm not creative, or oh, I'm not an artist, or I can't do music, because those pathways may have been deactivated. But it's not saying that you can't open those pathways again. And that's what this podcast today is about. It's to maybe inspire you to open those pathways again. So it's specifically for people who don't think that they're creative. I actually would argue, yes, you are. You just have gotten out of touch with how to allow that. And I'm going to give you some tips to get back in touch with it, because it's a really efficient way of downloading emotions, not to mention all the other benefits and creating more meaning in life. And I just want to give, before we go into that, a little bit of a philosophical look of what art actually is to me. So from my perspective, in its simplest form, I see art is just a reflection expressed. So it's like the tide of an ocean. And if you just imagine at the back of yourself a mirror, and what happens is you get inputs from your external reality, thoughts, feelings, emotions, all from your life experience that come into you. They hit that mirror, they reflect, and then they bounce back through you, but that's when they get filtered with your own biases and your own experience, that your inner narrator, kind of with everything you've ever experienced before, it will kind of give it its tone or its filter before it comes back out again. And what is the loudest input. So whatever's coming into you, whatever you hear the loudest, is a good thing to use as your source to reflect on, to express through art. So this can be positive or negative. So just say you've fallen in love and you're just at the start, you're in a honeymoon phase of a relationship. Now, it's probably going to be very consuming and take over your whole everything because it just feels so amazing. So, but that can also make you giddy, and maybe sometimes it's even good to express that out of you so you're more balanced as well. Equally, negative things. If something externally it really pisses you off or hurts you or angers you, or old pain that you ruminate about it, you just keep thinking of this scenario that just drives your head mad, whatever is the loudest signal, that is a really good source to work with in the process we're going to go into, that comes in, hits that back mirror, reflects, go through yourself, through your biases, through the way that you filter it, and is expressed. And when it's expressed, it can be expressed with or without technical ability. So when you go to the art gallery and you see these masterworks in painting from the old masters, they are technically absolutely outstanding. But equally, you can go to an art gallery and see a pile of rubbish with a chair, and it's considered art. I mean, they probably were paid quite a lot of money to have that pile of rubbish, literal rubbish, and a chair in there because it's modern art, and there isn't any technical ability in that. But that was that person's reflection. Whatever was happening externally came in through them, hit their back mirror, went through their filters, and it was a meaning for them that they then externally expressed. And they are both valid in their own way. And I'm not going to go into what's worth more because it's so subjective, art. But I feel like there's two sides to it. One is about the process for the individual doing the reflection and expression, and then it outputs either with a technical ability or no technical ability, but it's still the similar process. And then there's the effect that output has on others, which is the 2 in the 1, 2, 3. But that's a different whole thing. So somebody might be affected by that pile of rubbish and chair, and another person might look at it and go, oh, it's a pile of rubbish and a chair. It doesn't do anything to me. Same with the masters. Some people might think, oh, it's too technical, doesn't have enough feeling in it. It's the same when you listen to some classical singers. You might go, oh, yeah, they're technically brilliant, but I don't feel the vibe. So it's all subjective once it gets to the external perception from another person observing and consuming that art. And it can be in any form, like songs, books, dances, to have this artistic expression and reflection. So that's just a little bit of how I see what art actually is, and hopefully it helps you not be too judgmental of yourself about having any technical ability or not, because what we're going to do today is more about the process. And I mean, obviously, if somebody wants to go and study one specific technical ability in art and become a master in it, it's an absolutely outstanding thing to watch and observe. And I was watching a documentary the other day about Japanese sword makers, and honestly, I'm just blown away by the dedication, and I couldn't stick to just one thing like that. I love meeting and talking to masters of their art or craft, or because I just admire that discipline, and that's a phenomenal outcome. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking more about just that process of allowing stimulus to come in, listening to the loudest voice, letting it hit your back mirror to reflect upon that, putting it through your own filters. You can't help that. Our own biases are there. And that's what gives it a beautiful tonality, because that's your perspective and that's the main thing. And then letting it out of yourself in a creative form. So we're going to go through a bit of a 5-step process today that could help getting you back into your creative flow state. So step 1 is choosing your medium. So if you've done any music before, you might want to choose music or an instrument or painting or drawing or any kind of craft. Or if you like dancing or movement, you might want to choose that. Or even sculpture. Sculpture is an easy one because you can use anything. You don't have to go and buy an instrument. You can use things at home. Dancing and sculpture are both things you can do immediately without any tools. So choosing a medium, any medium. Second is setting clear intentions. So this will help you if you've accidentally didn't use it, so you lost it. So those pathways of your creative self may be currently deactivated and we got to try to reactivate them. First, setting some clear intentions to reactivate them will help. And that's actually just given me an idea. I'm going to do podcast 7, the next podcast on intention setting, because I learned a lot when I was at university about intentions, and I can help. If you're not used to setting them, I've got some tips that might help. Anyway, so first you set the intention to release the excess emotions and thoughts that do not serve your highest good. So I always imagine intentions like a bow and arrow and an archer, setting a clear intention, pulling back the bow, focusing on the bullseye with your sharpest intention of that's what you want to achieve. That's when you're aiming for it, and then you have to let go. And in that allowance and letting go, that's when the universe and her mysterious ways helps achieve those objectives, when you're able to be really clear and then let go. So second step is setting those clear intentions. The third step is what I talked about before, is tuning into the feeling. It's almost like becoming a human radio, and put up your little antenna and see what is the loudest signal you're getting at the moment. And it could be anything you ruminate on. It could be something in the world, something that's really upsetting you. It could be something you're angry about. It could be something really positive. You might be in love. Anything that you find yourself thinking and feeling about a lot. And imagine yourself as a radio, and what is the loudest signal coming through? And choose that as your topic of expression. Often it will be, as an empath, somebody else's stuff. If you're a 213, it's most likely going to be someone else's crap, which is good. It's a good thing to express then, because it is letting go of other people's baggage, which doesn't actually serve you. So find what that is and tune into it. When you tune into it, try to hear it even louder than before. So go fully into the signal of what's coming through. Feel it. Feel and think into it as loud as you can, and try to, it's like you're tuning a radio. Tune that radio so it's crystal clear coming back, and it's going to hit the back mirror of you. When it hits that back mirror, that is when you start reflecting on it from your perspective, and that's when your tonality comes through. This is step 4. We then need to choose the tones or the colors or the objects that match the tonality of that signal. So, for example, if somebody's pissing you off at work and it's the same person and you keep ruminating about it, let's call him Frank. And Frank is just, his behavior is driving you nuts, and he actually offloads all his stuff on you every time at lunch break, and you can't get Frank out of your head because he's accidentally tangulated you in all of his drama. And it's actually got to the point you're getting angry about it. So you've tuned into it. You've been ruminating about all those conversations. And when you've chosen your medium, just say, I'm choosing a song now as my example. I tune into Frank. He's making me actually angry. I'm going to choose a chord and an energy and a strumming style that matches most precisely to that feeling, because the more I can align the feeling to the reflection that's coming back off the mirror and the tonality of the song, the easier channel it has to kind of escape me and get out of me. So if I align that really well, it's almost like all that stuff that's come in, it's been ruminating in my head, it's hit the mirror, I just channel it out, especially if I can match it. If I was doing Frank in dance form, I'd probably start shaking my limbs and maybe even doing some hardcore death metal head banging, and I don't know, but you know what I mean, hopefully. If he was a sculpture, now that he's made me quite angry every day, I would probably be choosing something jagged, and I don't know, I'd go and get a knife from the kitchen and maybe even some fruit and just start chopping. Not that I'm not chopping Frank, but I'm chopping all the emotions that I seem to be carrying. You get my point. Match in colors and tones. If it was a painting, I might get dark red mixed with purple and sharp lines to let it out. Equally, if it was positive, I'm in the honeymoon phase, it's driving me nuts. I can't concentrate on work because I'm thinking about the person all the time. I want to let it out of my body so I can just go back to my normal work day. I might paint a picture that is just the perfect rainbow pastel colors of harmony and joy, and let it out and let it sit in that painting in a safe place. And if you do it really well, even if you don't have technical ability, that feeling will be packaged in that place that when someone else observes it, they will feel that same, or they will feel a very similar feeling to what you've actually packaged. Step 5 is allowing it to flow, and don't judge it. And especially if you've closed down those pathways many years ago, you might be very super analytical, thinking still with this limiting belief of you're not an artist. Try to just ignore that. Go back to being a 5-year-old and exploring with wonder and awe and allowing the flow, and just sink into the allowance of you being a radio and experiencing it and being that receiver, letting it mirror, and just let it out. Doesn't matter what it is. No one actually cares. When you look at it from the moon, who cares what it is that comes out? Even if it's one dot in the middle of a big blank sheet. If that dot best encapsulates the feeling that you've been feeling of that thing you want outside of yourself, that dot is the answer. So just allow it to be that and try not to judge it. That's it. That's the 5-step process. So choosing a medium was step 1. Step 2 was setting clear intentions. Step 3 was tune into the feeling, becoming a human radio. Step 4 is choose the colors or tones or objects or chords that match that signal. Step 5 is allow it to flow and don't judge it. Just sink into that allowance. Just definitely remember there's no such thing as bad art. And there's art that's done, like I said, with more technical ability, but we're not doing this for anyone else but ourselves at the moment. And it's just part of becoming a strong 1, 2, 3 and offloading those emotions safely. And that's it. If you want to go more into this so you can really become a thriving, dancing 1, 2, 3, I'm going to give you 2 takeaways. One is the book that I'm currently writing is on pre-order, the 1, 2, 3 theory, and it goes into various aspects of becoming a thriving empath in life, love, and work. The other thing is purely on creative expression is a beautiful book. I've only read a tiny bit. I've heard about such good positive reviews, called The Artist's Way, and it's a really good way to get back in tune with your inner artist. And if you want to explore more, that's a really good thing you could do, because the more that you let that out, the lighter you will feel, the less tangled, the less sad, the less angry, the less emotionally unstable, even from positive emotions. When you're just giddy with, maybe you want to keep that and not put it out anywhere, but maybe you want to share it. If you're feeling so in love and happy, maybe you want to put it in a package of some sort and share it with the world. You might even want to make a card for the person you love and express it into that and give it to them. The other great thing about creative expression, I believe this reflection process really depthens your experience with life, because it gives you that space to feel things, tune into them, and allow your contribution to that experience to merge with it and find an outlet. And art is just, and creative expression is just phenomenal like that. It certainly, it enables you to get out of the day-to-day just getting on with life and doing what's expected, and enables you to almost go from a side angle or a high perspective angle or a deep angle to look at reality from this unique spot. And when you give yourself that space to do that, it creates a richer, in my perspective, a richer life experience. And the more value you have from experience, the richer you are as a human, I feel. And it helps you feel a satisfaction that isn't easily quenched from other areas of life. It's one of the core pillars to me, back to the five-finger theory, that it's really important to have optimized as well. And yeah, if we don't do that, just I think that carrying all that extra baggage, it's not comfortable. So I urge any of you that feels like you're carrying all this baggage of other people's, it might be time to let it go, to feel less heavy and transform it. It's a bit like, I see people, empaths that are 213s, they're a bit like long haul travelers that have just traveled around the world with really heavy bags that, yeah, they have no wheels and they're just weighed down compared to if you're an artist and you're letting out all that stuff, you're much lighter and you just have a little backpack with just a few tools that you need for yourself, and you're skipping, and your inner explorer and your 5-year-old can dance through life. And it does wonders for nourishing your soul. And it reminds me of this quote. There was Keith Haring. He was an American pop artist. He said, art should be something that liberates your soul. So, yeah, getting the flight of wings on your soul to allow it to be free and gain that higher perspective. If you want some more inspiration, because that's been a massive part of my life, I've made a dedicated soul section of the Insel. So if you head over to theinsel.com and head over to the Tea House, that's got a lot of my creative expressions that have helped me feel nurtured. Like I've got my music there, the book November Fox that I wrote, various children's books, and all the creative expressions I've needed to do to let it out of my body, that also turned into a career as well. One of the biggest expressions I did was I spent 5 years writing a book called November Fox. Sometimes I end these podcasts with a little bit of the audiobook from November Fox. And because she's an empath, vegan rock star, loosely based on a lot of my life experience and lucid dreams, she travels dimensions of consciousness to unlock this teleporting well-being cube that represents the five-finger theory. It's all about mind, heart, body, soul, purpose, and facing shadows. I released 2 albums under the name November Fox as part of that book that kind of intertwined with it. And I'm going to play for song time today one of the songs that I mentioned earlier from November Fox, which is actually me performing it. I produced with my friend Kino. He's a producer in Berlin. And yeah, it's the song In Love. Like I said, I just had left this narcissistic relationship in my 20s, and there was this situation with a character. And I said character because actually they're a character in November Fox as well. It's everything intertwines as one creative output from my spaghetti brain. But there was a person in my life at the time I was very close with, had a very deep connection with. And I think it was because I was a 213, putting others before my own needs. But I just got out of that situation and decided I need to become a 123. I wasn't yet one, but I was aware I needed to be one. And he was also a 213. So 2 2s before a 123, it can go very deep. And I think we were both aware of the danger of that, actually, and it was a bit scary, and we just tiptoed around the edge of it. And when I wrote this song, it was almost like I needed to place the emotions somewhere safe, almost as a safety mechanism, not to end up in a dynamic that was not going to be conducive to my bigger mission, which was to become a thriving 123, which was more important because I really cared about having a higher output, and I knew that if it's meant to be, it'll be there at the right time anyway. So it was allowing it to be what it was and allowing it to form at the right time if it was meant to be. So I'm going to play In Love from November Fox, also known as Esther Bertram. And yeah, it's a song about trying to see the writing on the wall in time before falling down the well of love. say that was In Love from November Fox, my album In My Dreams. If you'd like to hear more of my music, head over to theinsel.com. In the tea house section of the island, there are all my creative expressions. So the book November Fox and music and stuff like that, or at estherbertram.com.au. And with that said, I'm going to wrap up today's podcast. Would love to hear any stories of you getting on your creative path again. If this has brought you value, I really hope it has sparked even a tiny little spark of inspiration to get those pathways of creative reflection and expression going again, because if it even does a little bit towards making you feel lighter, that's really fantastic. I know that music and painting and video making and art and book writing for me has just served my soul so well that, I hope to hear any positive stories of creative expression helping you as well. And just want to thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next podcast. Have a beautiful week. Bye-bye. Today's episode is sponsored by StepByStepGuitarLessons.com, your go-to course if you're an absolute beginner and want to learn guitar. I have taught hundreds of students with my fast track method from ages 6 to 80. With lifetime access, these self-paced online lessons mean you can learn in the comfort of your own home. The bite-sized lessons are very easy to follow, and the platform keeps track of your progress. This course is tailored for absolute newbies and is much more effective than random YouTube videos or learning from your Uncle Steve, who may not have the patience required to teach at a true beginner's pace. You are guaranteed to get fast results, and if you don't like the learning style, there is a 30-day no questions asked money-back guarantee. Plus, it only costs the price of 2 in-person lessons, but you get over 50. There are several studies that prove that learning a musical instrument is the only activity to light up almost all areas of the brain at once. Making music has the power to soothe your soul, heal your body, and bring you true joy. Not to mention, if you've always wanted to be a rock star, learning guitar is your ticket to do so. So if you're ready to learn or want to gift it to a friend, head over to StepByStepGuitarLessons.com and enroll today. You've been listening to Empath Unplugged, a frequent release podcast of raw and philosophical reflections on well-being, love, and the meaning of life. Brought to you by your host, Esther Bertram, founder of The Insel, a rejuvenation island and community for empaths. For more information or to join the community, head over to theinsel.com, theinsel.com. If you have found value from this episode and would like to become a patron to support future episodes and gain access to exclusive content only available to patrons, head over to empathunplugged.com and sign up to be part of the inner circle. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful and rejuvenating week. Till next time, bye-bye.
How does it feel to hold this heart of mine? How does it feel?